Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and today we are going to be talking about a new system we've been building in the background here, and it starts off as being about autonomy. And what we've been doing is trying to kind of like nail down personality profiles in a way of abusers and outcomes. And the first subset that we've been doing is mothers and daughters, abusive mothers, and the outcomes for daughters that have gone through this. And eventually we will get to relationships. That's just that there's so much data to go through that it was, in my mind, easier to start off with mothers and daughters. And we still need a lot more mother-daughter stories, even if you do not want to be on the show. Just recording a story helps us take the story and throw it into our framework that we created to see if the framework holds. And we're still in the process of creating more subsets of identities. So I know that sounds like a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense to any of you, but when we think about mothers and daughters on the show, a big part of everything is autonomy. And autonomy is the biggest overall arching thing that is going on. And it's about independence, it's about identity, it's about separateness. And autonomy means, the right to think your own thoughts, the right to feel your own feelings, the right to make your own decisions, the right to privacy, the right to become your own person. And in many ways, abusive maternal systems, autonomy is systematically eroded. And we hear that in the show in every mother-daughter episode. So we've been mapping things. So today we're going to kind of discuss the beginning of the mapping and the different types of control that are going on. And number one is control through dominance. So in some homes, autonomy is suppressed through hierarchy. And this could look like there's no disagreements allowed, decisions can be overridden, there's fear-based compliance going on, punishment can happen for being independent, and then they can be the final authority because I said so. And in these systems, autonomy feels dangerous. If you push back, there are consequences. So daughters may adapt, they might become compliant, or they can become hyper independent as soon as they can escape. But either way, their autonomy was never safely developed. It was either crushed or deferred. And you might hear your story in what I just said. And then there's control through guilt. So in some homes, autonomy isn't suppressed through fear, it's suppressed through guilt. And this sounds like, after everything I've done for you, you're hurting me. When you try to create distance from your mother, there could be emotional collapse. Illness or crisis might occur when you try to get your own independence. So autonomy here doesn't feel dangerous. Autonomy feels cruel. And you're not afraid of punishment. You're afraid of being selfish. So in this case, daughters might stay close. They might overfunction. They might take care of their mother emotionally. And being an individual here really becomes morally threatening. And another one we have here is control through perfection. And sometimes autonomy is suppressed through chronic correction. And nothing is ever really right. Your tone's never right. Your appearance is never right. Your grades are never right. Your choices are never right. Your relationships are never right. And the message becomes that you are not enough as you are. And autonomy gets replaced by performance. So instead of asking, what do I want? The daughter might ask themselves, what will finally be good enough? And over time, you might internalize that and become very critical. And autonomy can really create a lot of anxiety here when it collapses in this one. And then we have control through emotional withholding. So some mothers don't yell, they don't collapse, they don't shame you loudly, they withdraw. They withhold warmth. And they really offer little emotional validation, little reassurance. They're really not attuned to you. There's little attunement going on. There's not a lot of approval. Approval becomes scarce. Affection becomes conditional. And autonomy feels risky because the connection here feels very, very, very fragile. So daughters here could become approval seeking, or they could become emotionally self-contained. They stop asking for comfort. They stop expressing their needs. They shrink themselves. And it's not because they were punished. It's just because their emotional access to their mother was withheld. And then the next one, we have control through fusion or control through enmeshment. And autonomy here is suppressed through the identity being collapsed. So your privacy doesn't exist. Boundaries don't exist. You're treated as an extension of your parent. This sounds like you're just like me, oversharing adult problems, expecting emotional loyalty above all else, punishing you for being different, differentiation, not allowing separate opinions. Here, autonomy feels like betrayal. You're not being able to be an individual. So daughters really lose track of where their mother begins and where they end. So they become caretakers. They can become emotional partners. They can become identity mirrors. And later in life, they really may struggle to know who they are, what they like, because you're just an extension of your parent in some sort of way. You've been enmeshed with them. And then we have control through instability. And in many homes, autonomy is suppressed through chaos, unpredictable moods, explosive reactions, crisis cycles. And when the environment here is unstable, autonomy development really becomes secondary to survival. And you don't explore identity when you're trying to stay safe. You're really just in survival mode. So you become hypervigilant. You're scanning for mood shifts. You adapt constantly. Your autonomy here really gets postponed. You're really just looking for safety in every sort of way. And this can happen not just over 1 year, 2 years. This can go on for decades. And in the framework that we've been creating, and we've been creating this framework through all of the stories, and some people do not like artificial intelligence, but we've been using it to analyze patterns and being able to really see these things and create a better framework for people that is currently out there. And this is kind of the beginning stages of it. And coming to the conclusion that autonomy really was in every story, and that the best outcome, or what the daughter was looking for, was to leave for the most part, is to either leave or get a reprieve from what's going on, move far away, get their own life, and to kind of diffuse that situation and to be able to become themselves. So everything is going to be top down from there, but autonomy being the most important thing. And we've created core drivers. We have different names for those core drivers. Right now, we have something called amplifier identities, and I won't go into these things because it won't make sense to you at the moment. But we have 8 of those right now, and we think there will only be 8 at the most, possibly a couple less than that. And what happens is when you combine the core identities with the amplifier identities, what happens, it'll start spitting out personality types. And not just, in Carol McBride's book, when it comes to mothers and daughters, I think she has about 8 types in there, 6 to 8 types in there. And in reality, I don't think that is large enough of a pool. And eventually we're going to come up with our personality types. I think those ones, some people can see a little bit of them in this one, a little bit of them in that one. And then we're going to try and really come up with really distinct personalities that take it a little bit of a step further. And for all of these things, there will be mechanisms or tools, and then we're going to have daughter role outcomes. Like with all these variables, we're going to be able to map everything, and that's kind of what we're doing today. And what I've talked about today was just a bit of the beginning of the mapping, and now we're looking for more stories, because what we're doing with these stories is we're going to be feeding it into the framework to try to break the framework. And if we can't break the framework, which hasn't happened so far, then this is a real way of thinking and a real way of mapping what has happened to you. And then we're going to eventually take this idea and start using it on our survivor stories for relationships as well, to really break those down into more types of abusers. Because why does he do that? You're only seeing 9 types, but in reality, there are more. We just haven't mapped them out yet. The 9 that you're hearing from Lundy Bancroft would be the most popular ones he hears. And it's really maybe not as scientifically done. And I think we're kind of bringing a little bit more science and pattern recognition to be able to create these types for people to understand more of where their abuser came from, their kind of core injuries, and we're going to move you through to see the full mapping of what happened and how outcomes occurred as well. And hopefully this makes some sort of sense to you, but this is kind of the road that we're going on. And when it comes to leaving, especially with autonomy here, going back to what we've been discussing, I mean, there's so many daughter adaptations. And I'm just going to give you a handful. You have the parentified caretaker, the overachiever, the scapegoat, the hyper-independent adult, the chronic self-doubter, the emotional appeaser, the one who never asks for help. And these are just a fraction of the outcomes or adaptation. These aren't outcomes. These are adaptations that can happen. It's not a full outcome. And these are just the survival strategies that are happening. And hopefully with everything that we're doing in the coming months, and we'll slowly be talking about this more on episodes like this as we get more confident in what we've been building, you'll start to see your life in a lot of ways, and hopefully that can be helpful to many of you out there. So again, this episode was to kind of bring this up and also do a shout out to get people who are in mother-daughter relationships to start sending in more stories, whether they want to be on the show or not. If you want to record yourself and send it to us, like your full story, you don't even have to talk to us. We're just going to kind of start testing our theories here in our framework, and hopefully it still won't break. So if any of this resonated with you, or any of you found this to be something you wanted to be a part of, send everything your way. If this resonated with you, these dynamics are complex and your story is valuable and it means something, and you can help others, I think, by taking part of this, and we're with you. And if you want to share, just, reach out to us, and we'll start making these patterns even clearer than we have already. So um, I don't know if you found this episode useful, but I hope that you found it interesting, and um, hope I hear from many of you, and I hope you have a good night.